Welcome to the WP Builds podcast, bringing you the latest news from the WordPress community. Now, welcome your hosts, David Wormsley and Nathan Wrigley.
Hello there and welcome to the WP Builds podcast. Once again, you've reached episode number 239, entitled Use Patchstack to Keep Your WordPress Website Safe. It was published on Thursday, the 22nd of July, 2021. My name's Nathan Wrigley, and as always, a little bit of housekeeping just before we begin. We would love it if you like consuming our content, that you head over to our website and share all over the place all about it. Probably the easiest way to keep in touch with everything that we do is go to wpbuilds.com/subscribe. You'll be able to find that link in the main menu, and over there you'll be able to join our mailing list, find our Twitter feed, find our YouTube channel, and so on and so forth. So that's wpbuilds.com/subscribe. If you enjoy listening to the podcast, please give us a 5-star rating on whatever platform it is that you're listening to. That always really helps. And another strange thing is that we're trying out a new social channel. It's at wpbuilds.social. So that is a URL, wpbuilds.social. It's a Mastodon install, which is a free piece of open source software, which you can get and download. And it behaves a little bit like Twitter, but I'm just trying it out to see if we can have a community that's not connected to some gigantic juggernaut of a social platform. So wpbuilds.social, come and sign up and wait for your approval. We'd love to have you in there. Another page to mention, well worth looking at each and every week, is wpbuilds.com/deals. It's a bit like Black Friday, but every day of the week. And over there, you're going to find coupon codes for lots and lots of WordPress plugins, themes, hosting, and so on. Honestly, if there's something that you need this week, it's worth checking it out. You can search, click the big yellow button, and you can filter down and decide if anything is for you. So that's wpbuilds.com/deals. Another one to mention would be wpbuilds.com/advertise. You can use that if you're a WordPress product owner and you would like to get your message out in front of a WordPress specific audience, cut through all the noise, save money on Facebook ads and so on, get right to an audience who just listen to WordPress content. You can do that by going to wpbuilds.com/advertise, filling in the form there, and we'll be back in touch with you right away. One company that's done that, A/B Split Test. Do you want to set up your A/B split test in record time? The new A/B split test plugin for WordPress will have you up and running in a couple of minutes. Use your existing pages and test anything against anything else. Buttons, images, headers, rows, anything. And the best part is it works with Beaver Builder, Elementor, and the WordPress block editor. So you can check it out. Get a free demo at absplittest.com. Okie dokie, episode number 239 this week. If you're trying to find that on your podcast player or in some way searching for it, it's 239 that you're looking for. I'm talking today with Oliver Sild from the company Patchstack. It occurs to me that you may not have heard of Patchstack, but I'm sure you've heard of WebARX, and that's because WebARX used to be the name of the company and they've now rebranded to Patchstack. And that's what this podcast is about to some extent. We talk about why they decided to rebrand, what the reasons were for doing that, how successful is it, did they alienate their existing customers, did they bring on board a load of new customers, and so from that angle it's a very interesting podcast. If you've ever rebranded before, there might be some lessons to learn in here, but we also talk about some of the new features that they've added, for example their red team and the new plugin database where you can assist helping people find and locate and take action against WordPress plugin vulnerabilities. So episode 239, Oliver Sild. I hope you enjoy the podcast. Hello there, welcome once again to the WP Builds podcast. You've reached an interview episode, and today I am joined all the way from Estonia by Oliver Sild. Hello, Oliver.
Hello, Nathan.
Very nice to have you on the show today. Now, Oliver, you're probably familiar with a company that Oliver has been leading for, well, many years now, I would like to say. But more recently, it's gone through a bit of a rebrand, a bit of a change. But let's go back. Let's wind the clock back. Tell us the original name of your company, and then we'll get into a conversation as to why you decided you wanted to move away from that to something new.
Yeah, so you probably have heard about WebARX. So now since March, we are actually called Patchstack.
It's quite a curious thing because I follow the WordPress news fairly closely. You know, I read most of the emails that come through into my inbox and scour the headlines and what have you. But this one took me quite by surprise. Was this intentionally stealthy? Was this something that you were only kind of letting know after the fact? Or did I just miss something?
Yeah, it actually came to our radar to do that, I think, in the end of the last summer. So we were kind of planning it on the background for quite some time, but we didn't really talk about that much, beforehand. So yeah, we kind of came out with the rebrand together with, some additional kind of some additions to our product base and so forth. So it could have been kind of a big update if you would look, at that from the side. Especially because of the database and the red team, which we can of course talk about as well. But it definitely was a big update for us internally, and we have prepared for it, I think, more than 6 months in full stealth mode.
Yeah, okay, well, that's good to know because it means that I didn't miss too much. It wasn't me not paying attention. It was just you being secretive about it, which I guess in a certain sense fits very well with the nature of what you're doing. There's a lot of clandestine stuff happening. So let's talk about the reasons why you've decided to go from WebARX, because WebARX has been building up its reputation for many years now. You know, we rewind the clock a number of years, and it was a new product. You were having to convince people that you had authority and you had the credentials to do what it was that you were doing. And reputations like that are hard won and easily lost. So why go through all of this? What were the reasons that WebARX was no longer the name and the brand that you wanted to work with?
Yeah, actually, going back in time, I mean, when we started with WebARX, we kind of maybe had a little bit of a different product vision. I think what we were trying to build was something that many actually in the WordPress ecosystem often want to do, is to go all in and try to kind of build a platform that covers it all, right? So it should be like all in one and solve the problems from all possible angles. But over the time when we were like building the company and the product, and we like over and over again were stumbling into like one big issue that like eventually we realized we are the best at solving it, and which was the issue when it comes to plugin vulnerabilities, the security issues within the plugins and themes, and third-party code in general on your website, which you didn't code but you use that someone else made. And this really got us into a point where we started to focus on that more and more. We happen to be in news quite a lot about our own internal findings when we are monitoring which kind of plugins our customers are, let's say, using on their websites to let them know if there's any security vulnerabilities in there. But at the same time, we have like an overview of which are the ones that are getting more popular over time, and then we are analyzing them in-house as well. And then when we find something in those, we help the developers of those plugins to fix them, and in some cases these vulnerabilities end up being covered by news. And what happened was we got into news quite a lot for our research, as we usually were the one who were finding the kind of tricky vulnerabilities or more kind of more difficult ones. And then a lot of companies actually started to reach out to us who are building plugins in the WordPress ecosystem to help them to find the vulnerabilities within their plugins before even before it reaches the customer's websites. I mean, the developers would reach out to us to ask us to kind of do the code review, let's say, before they kind of release the latest version to the WordPress plugins repo. And so what happened was that we ended up actually doing a lot of those code audits, and kind of most of our day-to-day work was about analyzing plugins, analyzing where the vulnerabilities are within plugins, creating virtual patches for the plugins to keep our customers safe and so forth. And slowly we started to kind of focus, put our focus so deeply into this one single issue that we discovered that, hey, this is actually a problem that on the WordPress ecosystem, it's kind of the biggest thing. I mean, you could have tens or 20 hardening settings on your WordPress site. You could have, really good malware cleanup product as well. But if you end up having a plugin installed on your WordPress site, which allows an attacker to just, bypass anything, log in as administrator and do whatever he wants with the website, it's not that much of a use of a lot of those hardening things. And when we look at statistics, we are actually about to release a white paper about this, hopefully within the next couple of weeks. In 2020, for example, if we analyze all the security vulnerabilities in WordPress ecosystem, 95% are all from plugins and themes. So, I mean, it was obvious that we need to turn to this issue and actually, focus on solving that. And because of that, we also were, running another project on the sidelines, which was called Plug Bounty. And this was basically a bug bounty platform, which essentially is like a platform where, security experts come together, they find vulnerabilities within, a bunch of software, they report it, and then if they find something, they get paid for it. So we actually created the very first platform like this for WordPress plugins. So right now it's called Patchstack Red Team, where basically the researchers find issues. We help developers to fix those issues then, and we then reward the researchers for finding those things. So this was also something we already ran on the background, and then there's this third thing that we actually acquired another security company in the WordPress ecosystem called ThreatPress. So they were running a WordPress vulnerability database since 2014 or 2015. And we connected that with our platform. And then, we had basically, the three different names, WebARX, Plug Bounty, and ThreatPress. And we decided that, okay, we need to just make it more easy. And since they all kind of focused on solving the same problem, which was plugin vulnerabilities, we decided to go with Patchstack.
Yeah, it kind of nicely sums up what you're doing. You're hopefully patching the stack that people have got with their WordPress website.
Yeah.
Was there anything around the sort of, I don't know, the way that perhaps WebARX itself, just taking that singular word WebARX, which was WEBARX, it's kind of a quirky spelling. I just wonder if you potentially lost some traffic because people typed in perhaps a more traditional spelling of arcs or something like that. Was there problems around confusion, people not being able to find you on Google or finding the wrong thing?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there was a lot of issues like that because people ended up, saying WebARX, WebARX. There was a lot of different combinations of how you can spell it.
Yeah.
There was also even more combinations on how you could write it. And even though this is like the most trivial of them all, but I live in Estonia, right? And in Estonia, when my friends ask where do you work at, or some people ask me what I'm working on and so forth, if I say WebARX, it actually in direct translation sounds water park in Estonia. So it's sometimes I've had funny situations where I'm saying I'm working on security and so forth, and then it's oh, really cool, where do you work? And they say, well, I work in water park, and they're like, wait, what?
You're the guy at the door, not letting people in. Oh, that's absolutely hysterical. I have to say, for my part, I think the first time I ever heard of WebARX was actually when you were in the room with me at WordCamp Europe. So it was easy for me to get it right, but I confess that if I was coming to this and I saw your name, I would assume it was WebARX or something like that. I definitely would never have got it as WebARX. And, you know, in a world where these things matter, in a world where typing things into incorrectly into Google can hit your bottom line, it really doesn't make sense to sort of keep that going. That being said, it's quite a big deal to throw all of that under the bus, to consign it to the bin of history, and decide to go and rebrand everything. So you made the decision sort of 6 months ago that you were going to go for Patchstack, which I think is a really great name, by the way. I'm sure that'll go a long way with you. What did you have to actually do in order to switch over from one brand to another? You know, I'm sure there's all the usual stuff that we can talk about, which I'd like to talk about, like, you know, hire a designer and get people's opinion on the name and all of that. But I'm pretty sure there's things that were unexpected along the journey as well.
Yeah, I mean, once you do the rebrand, like one of the things is that what you prepare in terms of like the kind of soft things is like, you know, the brand voice, like what is going to be the vision. You know, the vision of the company comes from each and every employee in the company and so forth. So we did a lot of like these workshops where we actually got the professional involved to kind of help us, you know, kind of do the interviews with the customer, different customer profiles. I mean, it was a lot of work in terms of the soft values, and even to get to the point where we started to think about the name or to think about how the branding should look like or stuff like that. It was way deeper actually to kind of rethink about what the company actually is. So when we got to the point where we actually started to think about the name, I think we had like, I would say like 100 plus names. We needed to, like, we had a lot of names we needed to pick from. We had like different types of logo ideas. I mean, it was really, really difficult actually to come up with something that would work for all the, like, there is the thing that if you already have, you know, people in the team as well, like they have some sort of understanding what the company is, and the name has to, you know, fit that as well. But and also it has to fit something that also the customers would get, but it also needs to fit what you see as the future for the company, right? So it's like really, really fine tuning and balancing between, you know, what would still kind of preserve the good things and what would give you room for what old name didn't have room for. But yeah, I mean, the Patchstack name actually, I came to that name by myself for, I think, randomly pretty much. And I was like really just, you know, putting things together and was like, okay, what is that we, you know, what are we actually doing, right? So, well, we are patching your stack. So eventually it just came to, there was like a lot of different combinations of the word stack. There was combinations of the word patch. There was a lot of, you know, we also played with the word dependencies. But this was also, you know, about to go really difficult and so forth. So eventually we realized that there was like patchstack.com was available as well, which was already like a big deal because, you know, try to find any .com domains nowadays. So yeah, eventually it just all kind of made sense. And like the beginning was really hard, but once we got the name in place, it started to kind of roll in the right direction.
Yeah. I don't know if you've got any trace of the old website around, but you know,
it is actually live.
Yeah, oh, okay. You can still. I'm not actually looking at it at the moment, but I have very strong recollection of how it all looked, and I am no graphic designer. You know, I like what I like, and I can't really explain why I like it. There's just something about a particular style that switches me to on mode, and there's other things which I just don't like that. I really do like what you've done. I think all the sort of the typography that you've got, the color palettes that you've used, it just seemed, well, you've gone for green as opposed to red, you know, and I see stop when I see red, and I see go when I see green. It's much softer. It feels it just feels a little bit more welcoming, and I don't know if that was the intention, but you've definitely, I don't know, the old symbolism was all about the fortress, and the logo looked almost like the barricades of a castle or something like that, whereas now you've got this kind of little logo made up of rectangles, green rectangles with bits missing and so on, and it's a really nice job. Just from the outside, I'd say well done. It looks fabulous.
Yeah, we're really happy about the rebrand, to be honest. I mean, it's not just because all the good feedback we are getting for the rebrand itself, but also how it's been working in terms of the company growth and about the new kind of opportunities we've gotten into just because of the rebrand. But the rebrand didn't only come with the rebrand; it actually came with revealing a lot of the stuff that we've been working on the background. Like for example, the product completely looks different now. I mean, we did like complete overhaul for the product itself. We also made public the database that we were keeping, for the product itself to be able to notify our customers about the vulnerabilities. But we also connected it with acquisition we did earlier in this year, and we actually made it free and public for everyone. So if you go to patchstack.com/database, you actually see all the latest WordPress vulnerabilities, and a lot of them are actually reported to us exclusively by the Patchstack Red Team, which is the bug bounty program program I was mentioning, which we also ran kind of as a side project for over a year actually. And now it's called Patchstack Red Team, and now it's also part of the same kind of ecosystem, and it's all interlinked together finally. And sometimes you say like 1 + 1 + 1 = 3. In our case, it definitely equals like 5+, because the value that it actually generates that we put by putting together all these three pieces, it's insane. I mean, right now we are able to protect our customers first from any plugin vulnerabilities. We put patchstack.com live, I think in the beginning of March. And if you Google WordPress vulnerability database, for example, we are already ranking first, which is insane. So yeah.
That's incredible. I'm really curious about something that you just said a moment ago. You mentioned that obviously the rebranding had happened, and you've now had it out in the wild for a number of weeks, and people have begun to transition over and understand that they've got to type in patchstack.com instead of WebARX and so on. But you just sort of mentioned that the business had, well, I can't remember the exact wording, but it felt like you were saying that the rebrand itself had gained you traction. In other words, just the process of rebranding had kind of affected the bottom line. Perhaps you didn't say that it had brought more customers your way, but just the rebranding itself, that's absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, rebranding gave us some sort of fresh feeling. I mean, if you're a startup, let's say, and if you started, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, you started with a prototype, then you evolved, then you made your learnings, fixed stuff, deleted stuff, built stuff, it's all part of the startup journey, right? But during this process, some people get excited, some people get turned off. And if you do the rebrand, then basically you are not only, you still keep all the people who are already turned on about your product. But for the people who might not like what they saw before, it is actually a new chance for them to look into this.
Right.
And it kind of works really well in that terms. And this is also one of the reasons why a lot of companies do rebrand. And I think rebrands are a very good way to kind of go over, I think from the product vision side of things, and in general, I think it's like how the rebrand worked for us. It's not only about how our customers see us, or it isn't also about like just changing the facade of the company. It actually changed a lot of the mindset within our whole team. It also changed a lot, like the way how we approach our product, the kind of values that we have as a company. It allowed us to kind of really grind down to the specifics of what we really want to do. And it allowed us to take the time. I mean, if you do the rebrand, you need to go over everything, right? You need to go over, your brand voice, what, like, all your missions, vision, all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
But if you're like really, focused on, working for like, past 3 years or something, you usually don't take the time to step back into these
Right.
things anymore.
Right.
So rebrand is actually a really good way to kind of, again, kind of take a step back, think about like what you really want to solve, be really honest about yourself, like if you're really doing it in a way that you want to do, and if you're really moving in the direction that you want it to go. And that makes a really big difference. And I think, if I'm already talking about the way how the product has, changed from the inside, like how we are actually solving the problem, how we connected all the three parts, we made acquisition, we released the vulnerability database for free for the whole public. And we are now building this security community behind WordPress ecosystem. And this is happening first time in the history. I mean, all these things just help us to, create the brand what we also feel that we are inside. And I think we couldn't have been able to do that with old brands. And if like the people inside the company are really, very specifically kind of how to say on the right vibes, or like really vibrating the right thing and understanding what we are working, what are the goals that we are working in towards of. It just happens that the companies outside will somehow feel it. I don't know how to explain that.
Yeah.
But in terms of partnerships, for example, the way how our new brand actually communicates way better, like what problem we are solving and how we are doing it, and how we are completely different from the rest of the companies in the ecosystem in how we are solving this problem. It has really benefited a lot for us. I mean, we have jumped at least like from 10,000 to 16,000 users in just, within like few months. So
yeah, that's a really telling statistic, because any growth, you are putting it in jeopardy. You mentioned the fact that a new brand gives you the opportunity to attract new users who at some point thought, actually, that's not for me, but okay, they've had a look at everything, and I'm going to once again go back and see what it's like this time. But also, I'm curious to see how you protect the users who were already on board. How did it go with the communication of all of your current, the existing users the day you switched over? I'm just wondering how you went about that, because you're in quite an interesting industry, in that in and of itself change is probably not welcome. You're in an industry where people want to know that the thing that they're getting from you is rock solid, immutable. It's not going to kind of change. It's going to be steadfast and reliable. And then one day you sort of turn around and say, hang on a minute, we're really changing the whole lot from top to bottom. How did you communicate that, and how well did it go down? Did you reach out to your existing customers and slowly alert them, or was it just, nope, we're going to throw the switch and tell you about it afterwards?
Yeah, we're still in a transition period, actually. Like, we haven't pulled down any of the old website or anything like that. We just have like messages up there. People like if they're logging into the product, they are being redirected. And yeah, I mean, it's a lot of communication. I mean, for our marketing team, it was of course like really scary process, especially for the years of SEO that we have built.
Yeah.
Now if you transition to another domain, it sounds like mission impossible. But at the same time, Google is pretty smart in terms of understanding if actually companies are doing rebrands. So if you're using like 301 like redirects and stuff like that and gradually like bringing over content. For example, if we are bringing over a blog post from WebARX blog to Patchstack blog, and then we are just redirecting the old one to the new one, Google actually is replacing the domain eventually, and it remains some of the ranking. So it's not that bad actually in terms of that. And I mean, yeah, it is a communication thing, and we have really, there's been a lot of emailing, there's been a lot of kind of community building previously already before the rebrand. We told our customers that there's a big change coming up. We kind of tried to prepare questions that we are going to get, and then basically have these questions answered beforehand in our community and so forth. So to be honest, once we did the rebrand, we of course there's some people who say that I like the last the previous name better and so forth, but we got to understand that a lot of people just don't like changes by the fact that they are changes. But overall, what we see is that the feedback is way better than we expected. We thought that some people are more kind of against these kind of changes, which kind of means I think we did a good job, but at the same time, I think we did it on the right time.
In terms of the tool itself, you mentioned, obviously, and I want to come back to the red team and the database and all of that just before we close off. But in terms of the tool itself, was there a significant change in the capabilities of what WebARX could do that Patchstack could do? So as an example, if I was a WebARX user and I log into your SaaS interface and I was familiar with how it all worked, have you fiddled with the UI considerably? Have you moved things around? Do people have a bit of a learning curve? Indeed, maybe there's some new features that we haven't talked about that were thrown in at the moment of Patchstack going live.
Yeah, so actually we reworked the UI completely. We did user studies. We decided to go for something that is easier to kind of use. We changed the color schemes completely. We are still on a dark theme at this point, but it is way better to kind of grasp all the details. We kind of went crazy at one point with all the kind of colors, so it was really, really colorful on the dashboard, and it was a bit hard to understand what is the important things that I should kind of put my attention to and what is not. So I think the UI is completely changed. It is way easier to understand. More attention goes to the vulnerabilities that are being found on the website, and more attention goes to the fact that we are virtual patching them automatically. There are, of course, additions. For example, how the alerts can be set up. So you can basically, all the data that you see on Patchstack, everything can basically or everything can be turned into alerts. So you basically can choose, let's say, firewall logs, or vulnerability alerts, or let's say firewall logs, and you can create custom kind of triggers based on what you want to be alerted on. So, for example, you want to be alerted on if from specific IP someone is trying to do something against your website. You can also create activity logs based alerts based on activity logs. For example, you want to get alerts on when someone is trying to log in who does not have your specific IP, or if someone is activating a plugin while he doesn't have your specific IP. Also, there is a kind of module management system that we reworked in a way where if you go to the firewall view where you can see the WordPress virtual patches module, which is managed by us, and that gives you the protection against the plugin vulnerabilities automatically. There is additional OWASP module, for example, which you can just enable across all your websites. And we expect, we are planning to add a lot of different modules there, which you can just kind of browse as a library of security modules there, and then you can enable them on your websites. And yeah, I mean, the way how we notify you about the vulnerabilities, you can now directly look into the database, the information about the vulnerabilities that are being detected on your website are way more kind of detailed. You see exactly which versions are affected, which plugin, what is the vulnerability about, and so forth. And it allows you to, actually get protected against these immediately. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of changes like that.
I really like the old UI, but I like the new UI. It looks really great, really nice. You guys have nailed UIs, I would say. You've got a great team working there behind you. Let's just talk about the red team and finally about the vulnerability database. If you go to patchstack.com/red-team, now at the moment, the moment I'm looking at the screen, it's an invite-only process, but it may be that in the future that's going to change. I didn't even know that red team was a thing. I just assumed that this was some kind of wording that you'd made up, a nice fancy dark-sounding covert thing, but it's not the case. It turns out that in the security community, this is a thing. I'm curious to know what's its purpose, and are there any barriers to entry? Do you have any sort of process by which you've got to, I don't know, prove yourself if you want to be part of the Red Team initiative?
Yeah, so the red team indeed actually comes, it's a term that is being used actively in cybersecurity. So there is basically a red team and blue team. So the blue team usually is on the defense side. You can take blue team as Patchstack and our team who is working on, providing your website the protection against the, vulnerabilities within the plugins and so forth. And then the red team is like the opposite side, the offensive side. They are the guys who are poking, trying to find new ways to get access, which they shouldn't get, like, finding the vulnerabilities and so forth. And these guys are actually working on finding the vulnerabilities within the plugins. So that's what the hackers really do. And the whole idea of the red team actually came from the fact when we started to do the code reviews for a lot of the plugin. Like we've been doing like it's called in cybersecurity, it's also called penetration testing. So we basically audit the code of the plugin that you are developing and finding if there's any potential vulnerabilities in there, so you could fix them before you put this live, right? And we've been doing this for quite some time for a lot of WordPress plugin developers. Some of them have over 500,000 installations. You actually all know names of plugins, and you're probably using a lot of them, which in the background we have actually helped to secure. Fun fact.
Yeah.
But at the same time, this is something that can only be affordable for plugins that actually earn money, because this is it's a service that requires a lot of time, especially when it's done very thoroughly. But at the same time, WordPress ecosystem, as I mentioned before, 95% of the vulnerabilities from 2020 are coming from the plugins and themes and third-party code in WordPress. So I believe that all the plugins in the WordPress ecosystem need some sort of audit like that, even if they don't earn money, and if they are completely open source, they still need to have some sort of testing to be done, because they all affect the security state of the whole kind of web now. And the idea of the red team is really to build a community of security researchers who then find vulnerabilities within the plugins and themes and WordPress in general. And then if they report them to us, we basically have created like this gamified environment where if they find a vulnerability and they report it to us and help us, help us to reach out to developers and help them fix it, and ultimately also protect our customers from these vulnerabilities, we basically give these researchers a score based on how many installations there was for this specific plugin and how severe the vulnerability is and so forth. And in the end of every month, we basically have like a leaderboard and we do like a real money payouts to these researchers, so they actually earn money for contributing into the WordPress security. And this is like an initiative, I think, and we actually invite a lot of WordPress kind of companies basically companies who are working on the WordPress ecosystem, who plugin developers, hosting companies to join us. And to actually, contribute into this community building as well. And in return, we provide an API access to this database. So if someone is actually finding vulnerability, if they support the Red Team initiative, support even a little bit of money into this kind of pool of money, or the reward pool that is being paid out to these researchers who are, spending their time to secure the WordPress ecosystem, then in return, we give them access to the latest vulnerabilities that are being found through an API access. And for plugin developers, we actually give opportunity to, get in front of these researchers and get these, vulnerabilities being found by researchers instead of hackers who might, abuse the plugin in a bad way.
Yeah, so, it's a really nice double-fronted marketplace where you've got the plugin developers on the one side who are clearly in need of some reassurance that either their code is, as far as you're aware at this point, maybe it's okay, it's good to go, or you find a bunch of problems. And then on the flip side, the other side of the marketplace, you've got people who are coming along and giving their time, and in exchange for finding things, depending on how it fits on the leaderboard, they can make a bit of extra cash on the side. What a great idea!
Yeah, and we're releasing, I think, a blog post very soon now about I think the March numbers just closed, and we have a lot of people actually on the Red Team now, but we are still on kind of invite only way.
Yep.
So there's we basically the database that we have, Patchstack database. So it holds all the information about the vulnerabilities found in the WordPress ecosystem. And we basically have just taken the top reporters that have reported directly to us previously, and right now they are the ones who are in the Red Team. But anyone who is reporting to our database directly, they are getting a chance to get the invitation to the Red Team.
Got it.
And then over time, we are planning to make this also in a way that the current Red Team members can start inviting their own friends. And it's actually a working platform. I mean, it's not just something, just something that someone is reporting vulnerabilities to us on an email or something like that, but it's actually a separate platform that is working where is a catalog of all WordPress plugins. It has automated reporting process for the researchers, and it's actually a pretty cool system. We are excited to kind of show for the public very soon.
Yeah, it's really, really interesting. So that's patchstack.com/red-team. And then the final thing, which you've mentioned a couple of times, but I think it'd be maybe worth talking a little bit more about it, especially if you're into submitting vulnerabilities. There's an option to do that on this page. Go to patchstack.com/database. It describes itself as a hand-curated, verified, and enriched WordPress vulnerability information. So essentially, you are putting up there in an easy-to-digest, accessible way information about any vulnerabilities which you've come across in the recent past. Is there any are there any sort of hidden benefits from going to this page periodically? Is this the kind of thing that you're sending out as an email, a curated email, once a month, so that people could sign up and be notified, as opposed to having to come and look at all of this? Who's this aimed at?
I mean, this is aimed for the general public, to be honest. I mean, we have been keeping this database for some time already, for just to be able to provide our services, because we need to be aware of all the plugin vulnerabilities, right? And over time we have found a lot of plugin vulnerabilities ourselves, and now the Red Team is submitting to 20 plugin vulnerabilities per week or something. I mean, the numbers are pretty crazy.
Yeah.
All this information is being published there for the whole public, and there is no fees or anything like that. If you want to know if there's any new vulnerabilities in the WordPress ecosystem, and if you are affected by any of them, you can just go there and you can just look up. Mm-hmm. And you can also sign up to a newsletter, which I think every week we are sending out a newsletter about all the new vulnerabilities that are being discovered in the WordPress ecosystem.
Yeah, it's a nice. It's sorry to interrupt. I was just going to say it's really nicely laid out, and you can see. You'll be able to go here and see for yourself. I'm looking, and on just last week, there were 4 things on one day. There were about 10 things on a different day. Probably about 8 or 9 things on the day before that. So it really is, it's going up. There's lots and lots on there each and every day. And then if you click into, so for example, it lists the name of the plugin. So that's nice and easy for you to hopefully the names of most of the plugins that you're utilizing. So you can go and search for those. Then you can click in and you can have a look at the severity rating based upon the CVSS 3 score. And then it tells you which version is problematic, and then a little description about exactly what's gone wrong and what the solution is and whether it can be updated and so on. This is such a nice initiative. Thank you.
Thanks. And the thing is that all the vulnerabilities you see on this database, all Patchstack customers are already protected from them.
Right.
So the moment when there is a new vulnerability added to the database, at the same exact moment, a virtual patch is being sent to all our customers.
Oh, okay.
So
yeah. So it's going up there because you've had a look and mitigated it. It's you're not putting stuff up there which you haven't kind of fixed already. That's nice to know.
We are putting everything there.
Yep.
But at the same time, we are also providing protection from everything. So
okay, yeah, that was good to clarify that. If I was to come here and I'm an agency owner and I've got 50 WordPress websites under my belt, and therefore as a result, there's probably there might be lots and lots of plugins, some of which are kind of on one website and I've forgotten the names of them and all that. Is there any way of interacting with this? I definitely remember you saying API a little while ago, but I don't know if it was connected to this or something else. Is there any way that we can sort of programmatically, I don't know if you're connected to any of the services, like Manage WP or Main WP, any of those kind of things, to kind of alert us automatically to a list of plugins that we've already curated ourselves?
Yeah, so we actually have a free API which can be used non-commercially. And that I think we don't have the information up yet about this because we are still, I think we're trying to put it live as soon as possible. But if you don't find the information on the website, just reach out to me and I can give you the information. We just haven't been able to put it up on the website just yet.
Right.
But yeah, there is an API that you can use programmatically to basically get all the latest vulnerabilities automatically and also all sorts of stuff like that. So yeah, all that is available, and also for the hosting companies. I mean, we are actually going to announce pretty big partnerships within the upcoming weeks even, and they all kind of benefit from kind of getting the API to kind of alert their whole hosting kind of customers about these vulnerabilities, and at the same time they actually support the red team. Because we don't have a commercial billing just for the API. What we have is that if you support the red team, you get access to the API.
Got it.
So
yeah,
I mean, it's a community. The database and the red team is more of a community project to kind of really solve the WordPress kind of plugin themes security problem that we've had for quite some time, and I think we are on a brink of actually solving this problem for real.
Nice. The URL again, it's patchstack.com/database, and you can actually, if there's a button on there where you can submit a vulnerability, if you've discovered something, it takes you back to the red team page. So there's a nice complete circle here. Is there anything that I've missed? Is there a question you wish I had asked that I failed to do?
Wow, it's a good question. I don't actually.
It's probably the best question.
Yeah.
It's okay to say no.
I think we have covered pretty much everything. If someone has any questions to me, feel free to reach out to me on Twitter. It's Oliver Sild. I don't know. You can maybe somewhere post the Twitter link or something.
I will put it on the show notes.
And if it happens that someone who has a hosting company or who has a plugin, who is developing plugins, let's say, there is a way how to support that Red Team initiative and the database and get the value out of it for yourself as well, then reach out to me, and I can actually give you some more information about this, because I think there is a way for everyone to contribute to this and get also value out of this for their own company, and for really contributing to the whole WordPress ecosystem in a sense.
Well, Oliver, thank you so much for coming on the WP Builds podcast today. One final mention, it's patchstack.com. Go check it out and see if there's any value in that for you and your WordPress business. Oliver, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Well, I hope that you enjoyed that. It was very nice chatting to Oliver Sild all about the WebARX rebranding into Patchstack. Perhaps if you've used the product and seen the updates that were created, you could leave some comments. You can do that by going to wpbuilds.com and searching for this episode, which is 239, or you could go to our Facebook group, wpbuilds.com/Facebook, and find the appropriate thread and leave a comment there. We're always very, very happy to receive comments, good or bad. The WP Builds podcast was brought to you today by A/B Split Test. Do you want to set up your A/B Split Test in record time? The new A/B Split Test plugin for WordPress will have you up and running in a couple of minutes. Use your existing pages and test anything against anything else. Buttons, images, headers, rows, anything. And the best part is it works with Elementor, Beaver Builder, and the WordPress block editor. So, check it out and get a free demo over at absplittest.com. Okie dokie, I will be back with you next week, but because this was an interview episode, next week I'll be chatting with David Wormsley about something to do with the A to Z of WordPress. Join us then, or come and join us live, 2 p.m. UK time, every Monday for our This Week in WordPress show. Paul Lacey and some notable guests from the WordPress community will be joining us to chat about the WordPress news. If you subscribe to our newsletter, you'll be updated about all of that automatically as and when it gets published. And in this case, the Monday show gets published on a Tuesday, but obviously we have a Thursday podcast too. wpbuilds.com/subscribe if you'd like to stay updated. I hope that you enjoyed this week's show. Stay safe, have a good week. I'm going to fade in some dreadful cheesy music and say bye-bye for now.